Welcome! What causes sales professionals in the business world to go from being unstructured and spontaneous sellers to being professionals who operate with systems and structures of excellence? In this intensive course, we will debate how to develop our professional figures to become sales professionals of excellence using a wide range of advanced sales techniques that have proven their efficiency. What does the participant get out of this course? What will she gain from it? To raise the level of efficiency as sales professionals through knowledge and skill development through time, invest in the expansion of knowledge, skills, and training, the participant will gain the ability to handle the most complex and effective sales techniques which have been tailored to our time and the needs of the coming decades in the 21st century. Welcome, I'm David, Consultant Manager of the firm García-Lomas and Allen-Perkins, the ADO Corporation. For more than 15 years and nearly 1,000 days, I have been developing commercial orientation programs, Salesforce training in the development of leadership and management in all types of multinational organizations in the business world and all types of economic activity. This program will be developed in 5 major sections. 1. Selling by objectives. An objective and analytical system for evaluating our sales team's performance. 2. Sales information gathering and social skills, the contact ability. 3. Selling benefits, features, advantages, and benefits. 4. Techniques for handling and overcoming objections, handling objections. And 5. The closing of the sale. Let's start with part 1, called 1. Selling by objectives. An objective and analytical system for evaluating our sales team's performance. In my professional life as a consultant and trainer developing Salesforce and management teams, I've discovered that if we establish a scale of 1 to 10 points to evaluate the effectiveness of a salesperson, with 1 being mediocre salesperson and 10 being the man/woman of the year, a great salesperson with better results, the perfect salesperson, there is always someone in the group that says, "Yes, here I am the 10-point sales professional." Because the situation is a training situation, the participants are expected to be grown people in development, and now the perfect man/woman emerge with the 10 points. What to do? How to react to this assumption? At that time, I usually ask him or her, "Could you explain to the group why you consider yourself a 10 points professional? We are truly interested in hearing your answer." He or she then gets up and speaks. "Well, dear colleagues," says, "in sales numbers count, and the results I've gotten in the previous months have been so good that they've been on par with the better than the maximum set by my director, my boss, the person in control of my firm, to whom I report, and this hasn't happened to me just recently. Looking back, it's been happening for a long time. As a result, if my results are important, what counts, and my results have always been in line with or above that they've been able to demand me, I consider myself to be a 10 points professional." And something else to add. This brilliant result that I have achieved has not been given to me by anyone, but it has been my professional performance that has generated that magnificent result that allows me to consider myself 10 points. So I say, "Okay, your results are excellent and no one can take away your merits because the result that you have obtained did not fall from the sky. But as you say, it was your professional performance the cause of that excellent effect that you have obtained. And that it is your result because our sales results is the result of our action. But I'm going to give you 3 reasons why. Although you now consider yourself a 10 points professional, you should stay with us and keep training and developing, because you are going to see how things can rapidly change. The first reason: it wouldn't be surprising if someone from above, and there is always someone from above, came down tomorrow and told you that your results, my dear salesperson, are fantastic, but the competition is fierce. As you may be aware, it doesn't sleep, rest, or eat, instead of searching for a means to scratch a piece of the market share that we have. So let's see what you can come up with to increase your performance even more, since if we don't, the competition will expand our expense, which we don't want. Our 10 points professional is presented with a serious problem at the time, because her performance has been so good, and he had generated those good results. It had motivated him to rest on his laurels. And now you know what they say: when a shrimp falls asleep, the current takes him away. And now that his boss has asked him to increase the results, we find that his performance has remained at the same level as before. In other words, we will be in the situation of asking an elm for pears, and as we all know, that elms does not produce pears. The second reason: your worth today is 10 points. But if you do not do nothing to further your development, you may find that tomorrow your worth could be in decline to 9, then 10, then 7, and eventually, with time and the coming of new generation of experts, you will be no longer be worth 10 points. They might surpass you. Also, it turns out that next to you there is someone of lesser professional stature, and therefore with lower results. And I'm talking about the competition, which, as we all know, the competition does not eat, does not sleep or rest, always trying to take part of the market share we already have. And the competition sees our fantastic results, and seeing how small theirs are, decides to climb on a launch ramp, and with further training, it's possible that today dwarf may turn tomorrow into a giant, taking the best part of our market results. And you 10 points professional that have rested on your laurels, if you survive, which is doubtful, you will have to settle for the leftovers from the market. And all this because the competition knows something, and that is, knowledge is power, and well-developed training produces miracles. The third reason, and this one is important: it is now that a small professional-sized individual who is by our side is not the competition, but the client. Yes, the client, the customer, is the reason for being of all businesses in the world, because the customer in the business world is the king. And the client also develops himself and attends courses and trainings. The client also recognizes that knowledge is power and that training produces miracles, and continues to improve and advance, eventually surpassing the seller in professional status. And here we have a problem for the sales professional, because he or she is going to visit his customer without realizing that the customer has transformed into a giant who blends in to go unnoticed in front of the seller, and the seller trusts himself, believing that he has the easy operation, overconfident, and in the end, a new situation appears. If the seller's professional size is less than the client's, the circumstance that is presented to us may be referred to as the interesting name of the seller sold. This is something we never want to happen to us as sales professionals. Therefore, we have given 3 good reasons so that if someone in a situation like the one we indicated is considered 10 points, they should continue with their development and training, because today it is worth 10 points, tomorrow 9, then 8, and whenever you want to give account, new generations that are coming will take you out of the market. To put it in another way, No one knows what will happen tomorrow. And if there's something we can count on, is that the future will be of the brightest. Now I would like to suggest an exercise for each of you in your situation. Answer the following question. In our circumstances, what factors in the sales professional work influence his or her results? I also include personal factors, which are those that are solely dependent on the professional. Take a few moments to consider the various responses to this question while pausing the video. Then you will have the solution and you will be able to compare. The answer is the concept analysis and evaluation of sales activity, the 3 dimensions and the 10 sales areas. Now we are going to enter with the concept called analysis and evaluation of sales activity. It is an analytical and objective system to contemplate the performance of the sales professional. This gives rise to an answer that responds to the 3 dimensions and the 10 sales areas. Let's start by saying that the result of a sales professional is the consequence of his professional performance. In the initial analysis of the sales performance, we can break it down into 3 dimensions of the sale, which are quantity, direction, and quality. Going deeper into the analysis of the seller's performance, we conclude that these 3 dimensions of the sale in turn can be broken down into specific areas of sales activity according to 1. Quantity. Give rise to the first area of activity, which is the quantity of work. And what is quantity of work? It is the time the sales professional spends growing his professional activity. However, because we are in a personal selling environment, the number of sales interviews that the seller has after a week, a month, or a year will be used to quantify it. The second dimension is called direction, and the direction dimension is broken down into 3 sales activity areas. The first of the management and the second of the 10 areas is called customer management. And what is customer direction management? Well, it is the distribution of efforts that the sales professional makes concerning the different market segments, the different types of customers that she has, dedicating more attention to some with relation to others according to different criteria. The second area of direction dimension and the third in the 10 areas is product direction management. And what is product direction management? Well, it's the distribution of efforts made by the seller concerning the different products and services that he has been devoting more attention to than others based on his different criteria. And the third dimension of direction and fourth of the 10 areas is direction in work tasks. And what is direction management in work tasks? It is the distribution of efforts made by the seller concerning the different tasks that he develops logically, dedicating more time to the most important task, which is visiting his clients, without forgetting other tasks of lesser importance. And we go with the third dimension, quality. Quality has 6 areas to complete the 10 areas of sales activity, to which the 3 dimensions that we are citing of quantity, direction, and quality give rises. Number 5 of the top 10 quality areas is product knowledge. It is the level of knowledge about our products and services in which we must logically be experts. Area number 6 is customer knowledge and their environment. It is the knowledge that we have as sales professionals about our clients and the client's environment, of course, knowing that the greater the knowledge in this area, the greater the facilities I give myself as sales professional to sell more and better. Number 7 is competition knowledge. And here it must be said that many times This area is perhaps the most neglected by sales professionals, because they think that no one like them and their products and services equal them in the market. Now we enter number 8 of the 10 areas, which is short-term contactability of the sales professional. It is the social ability that the professional has to be accepted as a person quickly by the client based on a series of aspects that will be treated. Number 9 out of the 10 is the seller's long-term contactability. If we can open customer doors with the capacity to contact them in the long term, we can keep them open and establish customer loyalty. The aspects that define this ability will also be conveniently covered. And finally, we come to area number 10, sales techniques, negotiation techniques as a step beyond selling, and also communication techniques. This area, not because it is the last to be cited, it is of less importance. On the contrary, this area number 10 could be the summary of the 10 areas of the sales, because in a way it includes all of them. Finally, we want to point out that these 3 dimensions of quantity, direction and quality, we can create a figure that looks like a cube with 3 edges, as shown in the diagram. And those 3 edges, those 3 dimensions, quantity, direction and quality, define the results that the sales professional obtains. And now we have a challenge as sales professionals, and I have a challenge as a seller of my services, which is how to increase the cube's dimension. Because if we increase the quantity even a little, we also increase the direction even if it's only a little, and we also increase the quality, where there's always room for development, the cube will be dimensioned, and the outcomes will be improved. And that is precisely what all sales professionals want to achieve, increase the results of our activity. So, how to make it grow? 2 questions. 1. Which of the 10 sales areas in our situation do we think have no value? Take some time to respond by pausing the video. All are of value. They are the sale. Second question, what are the 3 most important areas in our situation? Let's think and choose. Was the choice difficult? Now let's start developing area 10, advanced sales techniques. One way to start developing this interesting topic is by asking 2 questions again. 1. The first question, although it is addressed to a group of sales professionals, does not stop producing a certain impact, and I will say a certain confusion, sometimes in some participants, since the first question is, what is selling? Before this question is addressed to the group, different answers usually come. Selling is an exchange between the buyer and the seller. Selling is a transaction. Selling is convincing. Selling is meeting the needs of our clients, and many more. Here I try to highlight the positive of each definition about what selling is. And at the end I say that I also have my particular way of saying what selling is. And I say that the sale is a scale, and that any scale worth of its name must have 2 plates. One is the first plate, which is the customer plate, where you have to put something that, no matter how much we give it, will not stop having a certain negative aspects from the customer's point of view, since there are the efforts that we ask the customer to make the sale. That is what she has to contribute, and ultimately all that and much more can be expressed in a single word: price. Therefore, price not only expressed in monetary units, but also expressed in the efforts, risk, dedication, commitment, what the client has to contribute, money to pay. In the other side of the scale is the seller's plate, our plate, where we will have to put everything necessary to compensate, balance positively and widely the weight of the efforts that our client will have to make. There is only one way, with a multitude of expressions and variants, to make the client see that the weight of the plate on the side of our scale far exceeds the efforts that he will have to make to carry out the sale. The way to compensate the efforts of the client expressed in price has the definition of benefits. The benefits we supply to the client through the fulfillment and resolution of their problems, desires, needs, concerns, dissatisfactions, and other issues that the client will receive from us after the sale is completed. Therefore, one way of expressing what it is to sell is to use two words. Selling is motivating, justifying why the customer has to buy, justifying their efforts on our part by providing all kinds of benefits and fulfill the satisfying needs and desires of the client. The value of the image of the scale, where price by the client and profits by the seller are confronted, is a whole program on sales techniques and could be summarized in how to make that at the end of the interview the client feels that the weight of the benefits that he's going to receive greatly exceed the effort price that he as a client has to contribute. Second question, and what are sales techniques? After asking the group about how they interpret the sales techniques and receiving different definitions from the participants, I come as in the first question to give my opinion, my own definition. And as a way of explaining it is through a process that is developed between the sales professional and the client, I come first to describe the different phases or stages through which the sales process goes through. Before contacting the client, we must do a good and careful preparation and planning of our sales interview. Remembering that famous expression that says, "Nothing substitutes a deep preparation." Answering the question, what factors positively influence our client before and during the first stage of the contact as part of the preparation, and also how to motivate and justify our interview with our client. Stage 1, the contact or introduction. It is the time necessary to create a positive atmosphere with the client and to awaken interest in our sales presentation. Stage 2, the collection of information or qualification. A stage in which through a good questioning technique we obtain all the relevant information about the client and his situation. Remember that saying is not selling. Selling is asking, knowing how to ask. Influence the customer with questions and not with statements. Stage 3, selling benefits. It is the argumentation stage. Using the methodology of starting from the most significant characteristics of our product or offer, transforming them into advantages for the client, and in turn transforming those advantages into benefits for the client as the solution to their problems, desires, and needs. A highly skilled way of selling. It transforms selling into a problem-solving system. Stage 4, overcoming doubts, resistance, and objections. How to discover the resistance and doubts of the client? Different techniques for handling and overcoming objections. Stage 5, leading the customer decision-making, closing the sale. When do we begin to close our sale? Different closing techniques. And already answering the question, and what are sales techniques? The answer is all the different ways of doing that I have as a sales professional in front of my client and throughout the sales interview to achieve my goal, which is ultimately to make the closing of a good sale. Finally, always make an action plan, the follow-up, the customer follow-up, because a satisfied customer is the best collaborator of the seller. Someone as significant as Mahatma Gandhi said when talking about the importance of the figure of the client in the business world the following: a customer is the most important visitor on our premises. He is not dependent on us. We are dependent on him. He is not an interruption to our work. He is the purpose of it. He is not an outsider in our business. He is part of it. We are not doing him a favor by serving him. He is doing us a favor by allowing us to do so. Therefore, the objective in the business world in the sale is 1. Have clients. 2. Increase the number of clients. 3. Increase the degree of customer satisfaction. 4. Because whoever has a client already has a business. 5. Since you can have buildings, machinery, qualified personnel, good suppliers, financial assets, and more, that if you don't have clients or they are disappearing, it is a matter of time, little, that you no longer have your business. 6. Large and renowned companies perhaps didn't take this into account and disappeared. 7. Therefore, it is clear that the customer is the reason to be of the business. 8. Whoever has a client has a treasure, as they say. 9. Because whoever has a client already has a business. 10. The one who loses clients will be soon dead, commercially speaking. We are already entering again in the development of the advanced sales techniques. We have already talked that one way to develop a good sales techniques could be through the analysis of the sales interview process. This process is developed by stages and start with stage 1, the contact. We said that this stage could be summarized as the time necessary to create a positive atmosphere with the client and awaken interest in our sales presentation. It is the time to develop the sales professional social skills, expressed in what is known as the short-term and long-term contact skills of the sales professional. And what is short-term contact skills? It is the professional capacity to ensure that his or her person or personality has no negative impact on the client's attitude or disposition towards his or her product, offer, or conditions, and that is done in the short term. We have spoken that the man of the 19th century and of earlier times was fundamentally emotional rational, while the man of the 20th and 21st century should be rational emotional. And that is in the great topic of the man of the 21st century, because we all think that we are already rational emotional, when many of us can still react more as emotional rational than as rational emotional. For all these reasons, the first minutes we spend with a client, a new client, are usually crucial. There is a saying that goes like this: you will never get a second chance to make a good first impression. This leads us to express that likewise a client can reject an objectively good offer from emotional, sentimental, illogical reasons, that is, not logical. Therefore, it will be good to establish a relationship of key aspects which the sales professional must maintain, especially in the short term, to develop a good short-term contact ability. We are going to relate them, and then whoever wants could self-evaluate in those 12 aspects, following an evaluation system that I will indicate. 1. Physical appearance. 2. External behavior. 3. Appropriate vocabulary. 4. Listen-speak ratio, Pareto law, 20%, 80%. 5. Direction of the conversation towards the interest of the client. 6. Avoid criticism. 7. Avoid open contradiction. 8. Avoid hurting susceptibilities. 9. Empathy. 10. Avoid excessive pressure. 11. Sympathy. And 12. Kindness. Many may consider these to be obvious, but how many of us always take them into account? Evaluation. We are going to follow a self-evaluation system that consists of giving from 1 to 5 points to each of the 12 aspects of the short-term contactability, giving me 1 point if I'm wrong and 5 if I'm perfect. The demanding high average will be 3.5 points. Limit when adding the scores 12 aspects per 3.5 equals 42 points. Scores below 3.5 could go for personal, professional improvement goals. If you want, pause the video and self-evaluate. Did several aspects come out below 3.5? If so, should they be personal improvement goals? Yourself. Now I would like to propose you a question. What factors positively influence our client before and during the first stage of the contact? Ultimately, the question is, how can you make a good first impression on a customer? If you want, pause the video and answer quickly. And then come some suggestions. Before. 1. Nothing replaces a deep preparation. 2. Therefore, a good interview preparation. 3. Get good and extensive information of the person and their situation. 4. How am I going to motivate and justify this interview? And more. And during. 1. Punctuality. 2. My image, the right one for the situation, according to the specific situation. 3. Look at the face and eyes, but without intimidating. 4. Convenient, friendly smile. 5. Know how to listen and never interrupt. And more. Stage 2. Information collection qualification. Recall that we said saying is not selling, selling is asking, knowing how to ask. Influence the client with questions, not with pretentious statements or terms, which all carry some authority implicitly. Therefore, the questioning techniques tries to provoke in the client his own self-indoctrination. Indoctrination, persuading someone to accept an idea, repeating it and showing it as true. Repeat an idea or belief to someone to persuade them to accept it. Self-indoctrination, the same but doing it to yourself. I repeat, stage 2 taking information or qualifications tries to get all the relevant information about the client and their situation for the next stage, that of benefits, to present our solutions, products, etc. in line with the situation and the customer demands. Let's get into the questioning techniques. There's an interesting exercise that I have been working on with a variety of groups over the years where knowing how to ask is essential. The exercise is called Doctor, My Head Hurts, and consists of developing a small role play with the participants where I, as a trainer, interpret the figure of a patient who comes to visit a doctor, who is interpreted by the entire group, with the aim by telling them about my problem, they can ask me all kinds of questions to find out the cause of my headache. Immediately is shown that all the questions that they ask me are questions that cause the answer to be a yes or no as an answer on my part as a patient, and that they do not produce value information. With this type of questions that result in a yes or no, it is difficult for the group to find out the ailment of the patient that I interpret. Therefore, at a certain moment, I stop the role play and recite some verses developed by Rudyard Kipling, Nobel Prize in Literature, who in a moment of inspiration said, "I have 6 honest servants, they taught me all I knew. Their names are when and where, how and who, what and why." With this we express that, in principle, there are 2 types of questions. Open questions, like Kipling's, questions that will produce a broad or open response from the interlocutor, and closed questions, such as those that the group asked me in the beginning without obtaining results, and which are those that end in a yes or no as a response from the interlocutor. Now we resume the role play, and I tell them to use the open questions of the ones of Rudyard Kipling and his honest servants, and soon after they ask me that type of questions, they come to find out the cause of the patient's problems that I as a trainer have interpreted in this exercise. The message is clear. We must use more open questions and fewer closed questions if we want to delve into the situation of the client. Now, and without getting too complicated, let's talk about two more questions, which are really essential and which are called the neutral and influence questions. Neutral question is the one with which we obtain the client's response without influencing him regarding the content of his response. Neutral questions gives our client great freedom, while the influence questions are those with which we intend to influence the content of the response of our interlocutor. Message: use more neutral questions and fewer influence questions. Now I propose a small exercise to fix these ideas and manage them effectively for the future. Classify what type of question is each of those listed below. Classification 1. Open or closed questions. 1. What is your opinion? It's open. 2. Is that convenient? Close. 3. Why? Open. 4. When we will have the answer? Open. 5. That statement leaves me surprised. I'm sorry, it's not a question. It is a goof. Neutral or of influence. 6. According to the experts, the market is growing. What do you think about that? Influence. 7. Why do you say that? It's neutral. 8. What is the current situation? Neutral. 9. The number shows that our market penetration is decreasing. What do you say to that? Influence. 10. But really, do you believe that? Influence. Let's finish by saying that if sales is not mathematics, then questioning techniques, they are not mathematics either. This stage 3 in the sales process is called selling benefits, which comes from stage 1, the contact, and stage 2, the information collection or qualification. When I start talking about selling benefits, how to sell benefits, I usually start by involving the group as I did in stage 2 of information collection with the exercise Doctor My Head Hurts, with which we started the training of the questioning techniques. Now that we enter in stage 3 on the sale of benefits to the client, I also usually begin with another exercise involving the group to impact on the key elements when selling the advantages and benefits to our client. And to begin, I say to the group the following. I think it will be a good idea at this time if one or more of you think about what you would like to offer me, whatever you can think of. Offer me that if the advantages, the benefits that to me personally I could suppose by doing something, make that something, use that something. It can be anything you can think of, including topics or seemingly absurd things, but I will praise one condition. When you introduce me to the advantages, benefits, and advantages of doing something, buying something, or using something that you are going to offer me, I must recognize that I do not need what you are going to offer me. I tell the group that this is an exercise with a purpose, and since the movement is demonstrated by walking, who wants to be the first to offer me the advantages, benefits of anything I repeat of doing something, buying something, using something? But what are you going to offer me if I don't have the slightest needs of it? Who will be the first? I insist. With a certain effort, overcoming a certain shyness, Different participants search their minds for things to offer me, some apparently absurd, and they begin the different role plays one by one. And what is happening is that as I ask the participant about what I'm going to achieve by following their advice, they themselves, without realizing it, introduce me to the fact that there are always one or more reasons, benefits, that for me it might be interesting to accept his/her proposals. At that point, I show them that they have exposed me to a reality. And that reality is that while playing that game, I'm becoming aware of the various needs that they are forming, and that these needs will be met by the various offerings that each of them is presenting me. And with that, I finally get them to realize something that is genuinely vital in the sale. That there is only benefit if there is a need, and that there is no such benefit if there is no such a need. Because the benefit and the need in the sale necessarily go together. This is a key and fundamental piece in the sale, and I repeat, there is only benefit to the extent that a need is covered. And what if someone offers me benefits without taking out the need? I can tell them to call it another way, not call it a benefit. To call it a characteristic, a specification or advantage, but not to call it a benefit. If I don't have it, no, I feel or do not want to recognize the existence of that need. And with all this, now we enter a new concept, which is going to be the mother of all battles, the authentic heart, the most core part of modern advanced sales techniques, and which is called the two dimensions of the advantage and the technique that derives from it, in which we will immediately enter, and where it is necessary to draw for a better understanding 3 boxes with the following disposition. In the upper box we write the word advantage, and since we are saying that advantage has 2 dimensions, in the lower left box we will write the word need as the first dimension of the advantage. And in the lower box we will write the second dimension of the advantage, which is the proof, that is, how can I prove to my client that everything I am giving him as advantages that are true, real, since I am giving him the compelling evidence that demonstrates the reality of those benefits that meet his/her needs. Once I have painted the 3 boxes, I make the group see that when presenting our advantages, we are not authorized to present a single one of my advantages without previously having extracted the need that the client may have of our advantage. Well, when I adjust the advantage to the client's need, at that moment it occurs as a miracle in the sale. With advantage is no longer an advantage. It takes a leap of rank and becomes a real benefit for the client, having exactly adjusted my advantage to the need that the client and the sales professional has previously defined. Now that we have adjusted the advantage to the client's need, transforming it into an authentic benefit for the client, reminding the group again that there is only benefit if there is a need, it is time to go down to the second dimension of the advantage. I mean the side of the proof, testing the client, demonstrating most palpably that there are facts, proofs that show that our advantages and benefits are authentic. Because if I couldn't present any proof before a benefit, the benefit will lose its value because I'll be asking my client to believe what I'm saying without any proof, which means I'll be asking the client to do acts of faith in my words like a salesperson, which is already asking too much of our customers. Therefore, as the words are blown away and it is not enough to sell advantages and benefits out loud, I must present the necessary evidence so that the client understands that my argumentation of advantages, now already benefits, are true. Once the need has been extracted, There is a step before the presentation of advantages and benefits, which is to start from the most significant technical characteristics, features of my product and offer for my client, transforming those features into advantages, with which I am already giving the first jump in rank, and transforming the advantages into benefits as the solution of the client's problems and needs. All these that I have just described, and that I developed dynamically with different participants of the group, has a denomination. It is called the DAPA technique of argumentation. And what is DAPA? And what is the meaning of those acronyms DAPA? The D of DAPA means that you have to start with the D of define the needs, problems, desires, concerns, dissatisfactions, tastes, whims, and so on, etc. of the client, throughout a structured dialogue between the seller and the client with that objective. The first A of DAPA means that you have to get the A of acceptance by the client of the existence of those needs, problems, desires, concerns, dissatisfactions, etc., etc., previously defined. Now I will be able to present to my client the features transform into advantages, and these in turn transform into benefits, which will be adjusted to the previously defined and accepted needs and problems. Now the second part, the PA of DAPA. The P in DAPA is the proof of the benefits of our offer and proposal, which we have already talked about. And the second A of DAPA refers to how to get the acceptance by the client of the validity of our given proof. When the sales professional has done a good DAPA with the client, things are tight and well tied, because we have been able to demonstrate to the client that we have the solution to his problems. And with that, we have achieved something really important. Transform this highly qualified way of selling into a problem-solving system, which is the DAPA technique of argumentation. Let's talk about the FAB system: features, advantages, benefits. As a new argumentation system where we are starting from the features of our products and services, we are going to transform them into advantages for the client, and those advantages in turn we are going to transform them into benefits as the authentic solution tailored to the client's needs. To do this, the first thing to do will be to clearly define what are characteristics, what are advantages, and what are benefits. Features: aspects, specifications, qualities of our products, ideas, services, measurements, suggestions, proposals, etc., etc. of our offer. Features describe the particularities of our product and or offer. And the features answer the questions: what is it? What does it have? Now let's define the advantages. Advantages explain how the features can be used. Advantages answers the questions: what does it do? How does it work? What are they for, those features? And then we will transform advantages into benefits, knowing that the benefits transform advantages into one or more purchase motivations or customer desires. Benefits answers the questions: what does it report to the client? What will it mean to the client? How will it benefit you? And a good way to start giving benefits is to use the word you, Mr. Client. To give this argumentation methodology an eminently practical approach, I propose the following exercise. First, define a product or service of ours that we wish to sell to a specific client. Second, establish a framework of what that supposed client, giving a flash of the client, a brief description of the situation of the client, where we are going to include their needs already supposedly defined. 3. Knowing the client's framework with their needs and the product and services that we are going to sell, we are going to apply our methodology starting from the most significant features, transforming them into advantages, and this in turn transforming them into benefits. Benefits that go out to meet the customer's purchasing motivations or desires, and that will satisfy the different 8 primary motivations. 1. Security. 2. Comfort, health. 3. The benefit. 4. Prestige. 5. The desire for knowledge. 6. Self-preservation or survival. 7. Sympathy, support, appreciation. And 8. Love. Since behind the human needs there are different primary motivations that underline the human acts. Remember, motivation is the final reason for human behavior. Now, if you think so, stop the video and take some time to develop this interesting exercise of features, advantages, and benefits for the solutions of the problems and needs of our clients. How was the exercise? 4. Techniques for handling and overcoming objections. Handling objections. The first question we must ask ourselves is, what is an objection? And we will answer that before our suggestions, measures, ideas, offers, propositions, products, services, and solutions, clients sometimes present objections. And now answer the question, what is an objection? We can point out that any indifference, doubt, silence, refusal, resistance, incident or claim on the part of the client that seems to delay the progress of our sales interview. It is worth noting that objections in general aren't always terrible or negative. They may be even beneficial because they build a two-way conversation with the client, allowing us to learn about their thoughts, positions, and get information from them when constructing them. In addition, objections can be the expression of 1. Need for more information. 2. Interest on the part of the client. 3. Tactic by the client. 4. A resistance to buy. And all these aim at our figures as sales professionals. Let's see. 1. A need for more information. Here the customer does not put objections. What happens is that the sales professional has not given him all the information that this customer requires. And the seller takes it as a resistance, the customer objection to buying. 2. Interest in the part of the client. The customer is interested, wants to be convinced, and therefore raises his last doubts and questions to be fully convinced by the seller. Therefore, what he expresses is interest in the subject that we are offering him. 3. Tactics by the client. This situation could pose a danger to the sales professional, since it may be that the client is interested in our proposal, but he knows something, that if there is a strong moment for the client and a weak moment for the salesperson, it is at the end, towards the end of the interview, where tactically the client sometimes raises a false objection to make the sales professional nervous and give him the last nut grip to get something extra from the professional. The salesperson, who already took the operation for granted, feels that he can escape, and then he gives and grants things that under normal circumstances he would not grant. In this way, the client takes advantage of the situation with his tactic. 4. A resistance to buy. In this situation, what happens is that, recalling the balance of previous videos, which expresses a whole situation of the sale, compared to the price that the customer has to pay in one of the plates, in the other are the benefits that the sales professional puts. Now what happens is that the client does not just see the weight of the benefits offered by the seller, compensate the effort that is asked of him in the form of a price, and therefore resists. It could also be that the customer feels that there are superior benefits in the offer of the competition. And for all this, the customer shows his resistance to buy. The question now is how to discover the resistance and doubts of the client. If we have to express, even paint an objection, it will be very useful to represent it as the figure of an iceberg. We already know that only the tip of the iceberg appears from the surface of the sea, that is 1/9 of its total volume, and that the other 8/9 part of the entire volume of the iceberg are below the surface. With objections, the same thing could happen, that the tip of the iceberg is seen on the surface and most of the part that remains hidden below the surface is not seen. Here the danger is that the sales professional believes that he sees everything and prematurely launches himself to try to give the solution to that part that he sees, the tip, without realizing that what he sees is not a problem, that it is a ghost, and that it is useless to give solution to that ghost because the real problem is the entire iceberg, what it's seen and what is hidden below the surface. Therefore, the first thing to do is to bring out the part that could be hidden from the iceberg, so that once he sees the entire problem, the iceberg in its entirety, now he will be in condition to start looking for the solution to that problem or objection. Therefore, now comes the question of how to discover the resistance and doubts of the client. In other words, what are the techniques and tactics to follow to achieve this objective? That is, to bring out the hidden part of the iceberg. We are going to give several solutions. 1. With questions. Example, why do you say that, Mr. Client? Test question. 2. With pauses. For the client to speak more, make a good long pause. 3. Emptying the customer. Example, beside this, is there anything else, Mr. Client? Test question. 4. Provoke the exit of the objection. Example, you seem to doubt what it makes you doubt, Mr. Client. 5. Letting the client speak without interrupting him. The client will tell us everything. 6. Sometimes give few benefits to the client and thus the client will ask for more. Example, for superior benefits in the offer of the competition. 7. With a test, provoke close. Example, take the operation for granted and observe the customer's reaction. Different techniques for overcoming objections. 1. The pause technique. The objection comes and you make a good pause. Several seconds pass and he speaks or you speak. If you are 100% sure of having a valid answer, give it and continue. If not 100% sure, then make an open and neutral question and pause. Pauses. They are a highly effective technique if well used, both to speak and listen and in all dialogue. We always think that pauses are excessively long, but they are a lot shorter than we think. The pauses create the rhythm. 3 reasons for pauses when handling objections. First reason, psychological. Example, the pause technique, since with it we obtain more information or the answer on many occasions. Second reason, if we are 100% sure of knowing what is behind the objection, pause to think about the answer. Third reason, if we are not 100% sure of knowing what is behind the objection, pause to find it. Use test questions. Example, why do you say that, Mr. Client? Or, Mr. Client, could you elaborate on that point? Or, what are you referring to, Mr. Client? 2. Techniques of conditional acceptance. It is a sine qua non condition, that is, a condition without which no, or indispensable, to be able to apply this technique, that when the objection arrives, the sales professional has a clear and in advance a good solution for that objection. Then 2 alternatives are proposed. The first is to answer the objection by overcoming it, since the seller has a good answer to overcome that objection. But then it could happen that with some clients with a highly developed ego, the ego is awakened, and when the client sees the great ease and speed with which the seller has solved and overcome his problem, his resistance, his strong objection, the client feels annoyed, somewhat humiliated, and almost obliged to demonstrate to the seller that he can put much tougher difficulties. And with this, without knowing it, the seller becomes a stimulus for the customer, who now seeks and searches in his mind new difficulties, objections to put to the seller, and now to see if the sales professional can overcome them. In short, we will be entering an egos competition between the customer and the seller, and it is clearly that this path doesn't interest us. The second alternative is that since the professional knows that he can overcome the objection with ease, what he does is to apply the magnificent technique of conditional acceptance in the following way and in a practical way. And he or she tells the client when the objection arrives, "I understand, Mr. Client, but tell me, see, if it were not for this problem, would you be willing to, or if what you tell me could be solved to your satisfaction, then would you be willing to seriously consider my proposal, enter into the final formalization of the operation, etc., etc." If the client says yes, you have already closed it. Since you have used a conditional acceptance and since you have the answer beforehand, you say, if you want to interpret a small doubt, "I see what you say, what you mean, Mr. Client. Could we solve it this way?" At that point, you overcome the objection, and the client has committed to you because by saying yes, he accepts that if that problem goes away, there will be no more resistance on his part to accept our proposal, because that was the last thing that was keeping the customer from moving on the next step in the sales process, which is the closing of the sale. The conditional acceptance is in fact a partial close, acceptance and steps to be achieved throughout the sales interview to reach the main close. It is a test closing too, to know the customer purchase temperature at a certain moment and also to extract a hidden objection that may exist, and it is a final closing. 3. The boomerang technique. Who doesn't know how the archaic hunting weapon employed by the Australian Aborigine works? When the Aborigine throws the boomerang and it misses the game he wishes to hunt, the boomerang returns reeling violently into the Aborigine hunter's hands. The same is true of this sales technique. This boomerang technique is developed when the client tells us something in which he is truly wrong. And more than objection, what the client is telling us and giving us is a good argument to buy, without having realized his error. Possibly he was mistaken, or he or she misinterpreted the point made. We already know that the competition does not eat, does not sleep, does not rest, trying to scratch the part of the market share and sometimes infuses negative information against us in the market. If that is the case, what we do with the boomerang techniques is to return the objection to the client, but how? The boomerang technique is not a question. The boomerang is a declaration, and it usually begins with the word Mr. Client. Mr. Client, you are telling me that's why you should accept my proposition, since you understood that, and I undo his mistake, leaving him unable to react. Let's not be too soft when we find ourselves dealing with objections, but courteous and educated with the client. Courteous does not take away the bravery, and always return to the side of the need on the balance of the sale when we are dealing with overcoming of objections, so that the client is aware of the need that he or she has. We will return to this topic in the future because there is much more to say about objection management and how to overcome them using these tactics. 5. Advanced sales techniques, featuring a part 4 devoted to the closing of the sale, the most important stage of the sale. Closing the sale has been described as the logical consequence of a good sales interview. Be firm when making the closing of the sale. be advised. Whenever I say this, I clearly remember a shocking personal experience I had in the past. At that time, years ago, I needed to buy a new personal computer for my private office. I got the opportunity to poll different participants, experts, in a natural and incidental way about which computers were available at that time, because I was working with numerous firms in the information technology industry in businesses and management training procedures at that time. I questioned about the most reliable hardware in the market with the biggest advantages. Surprisingly, professionals with a strong technical and commercial background were indicating me different brands and types of professional computers, even pointing me with great sincerity brands of their own competition. As a result, giving me solid information, I appeared to be informing myself on what was the market with a very professional vision, despite not attaching any value to the subject. It was interesting to see how professionals from the competition of that leading brand at that time were undoubtedly the best on the market. The truth is that inadvertently on their part, all of them agreed, and in fact, without knowing it, they sold me the most advanced personal computer of that brand. Neither short nor lazy. I took advantage of the fact that a friend of mine who was an IT information technology expert and who also worked in a company which in turn bought a large number of computers and services from an important concession of that brand. I took advantage of that circumstance and I called him and thought it was a golden opportunity for my friend to accompany me and advise me on the purchase. And also, since his company was a good client of that brand, maybe I could receive some financial discount. And so I did. I took advantage of an afternoon that I had some free time, since at that time I was very busy with a heavy workload, and with my friend we went to that dealership. The director received us kindly in her magnificent office and called a young in-house expert to give us a demonstration. The demonstration was a real firecracker. That is to say, it was a horrible demonstration. I couldn't believe that such an important brand made the terrible mistake of giving us such a terrible product demo. But I was a good customer, they didn't have to sell it to me, because other experts from the competing brands had sold it to me from a technological point of view. Therefore, I went over the terrible demonstration that they were giving me. At the end of the demo, my friend and I landed in the manager's office to formalize the operation. I didn't want to waste my time arguing about the terrible product demo, which they had given me, and I went over it. We talked about other things, and in the end, the moment of truth arrived, the time of the closing of the operation. She, the director, looked at me, I looked at her. She looked at me again, I looked at her again. She looked at me, I looked at her. And after a long pause, where I expected her to make a good closing, finally she opens her mouth and tells me, "So what?" I silently looked at her with a poker face. "What?" she repeated. "What?" she insisted. I started to get restless, thinking, "Come on, get the papers, tell me where to sign, and let's close the computer operation at once." Because in truth is that I need it, and I could not waste my time searching in other brands. She again, after a long pause, said, "What?" And now she added, "You have to think about it, right?" I didn't tumble to the ground in surprise, because the chair I was sitting in was real solid and hefty, and I managed to keep my winch in check. But the surprise has just begun, because my mouth opened and began to say, to my great astonishment, "Yes, yes, I have to think about it." When I said that, my mind told me, "But why do you say that if you have nothing to think about? You want to buy the computer," and the truth is that I was astonished when I realized that my mouth went one way and my mind the other. When I wanted to find out, I was on the street at the door of the dealership asking myself that philosophical question of what is a man like me doing on a street like this without the computer I came to buy? The truth is that for a moment I thought that something was wrong in my head and that I should go to the psychiatrist quickly. But then I thought, let's analyze what has happened. They have given me a terrible demonstration. They have not given me any discount despite being with my friend, a good customer, and above all, when I wait for the operation to close, she goes and tells me that if I have to think about it. And with that, the director was symbolically pushing me to leave her office and go out without my computer. Fortunately, no more than a week went by, and I discovered that an acquaintance of mine from the tennis club where I play regularly was the sales manager of that precise brand. He gave me his card and directed me to another dealership that owed him some favors, and that he would take care of me very well by going in his name. I did so, and to my surprise, the other dealership of the brand gave me a great discount on their purchase. The incompetent director of the first dealership will never know why she lost the sale that in fact she had already made, since she did not have to sell me because I was definitely going to buy. And the reason why she lost the sale was sold because she breached that statement with which I started this video. She was not firm at the time of closing. Rather, her fear infected me, giving my mind time to process the fact of the poor demonstration and the lack of giving me a discount. All of this caused my mouth to say to my mind when the question arrived, what? And what? And what? I agreed with her that yes, I'll think about it, and I walked away without purchasing anything. Therefore, do not forget to be firm when making the closing of the sale. This is not time for hesitation. On the contrary, our firmness, our best smile, in fact, transmit our client with security. The question now is, when do we begin to close our sale? And the answer is A. Since we think to contact the client, our objective is to close. B. Start with our strategy. We have already discussed that there are three types of closing techniques. 1. Partial closings, which are acceptance and steps to be covered in the development of the sales process. 2. Test close, which serves to know the temperature of the client regarding the purchase and also serves to remove any hidden objection. A test close is take the trade for done, knowing that it is probably not done. But with this, we see the customer's reaction and act accordingly. 3. And the final closing. Now let's get into the 11 main sales closing techniques. 1. Closing by direct question. One of the most effective closing techniques. Ask the client a direct closing question and shut up. The first to speak loses. Example, so it is okay we do it like this, and pause. 2. Closing by alternative. By offering the client two options or possibilities, we make them forget the third, the option of not buying. It consists of giving two, for me, positive alternatives. Start with the major, the minor, my main objective. The alternative clause can refer to quantity, delivery conditions, size, etc. 3. Closing by conditional acceptance. We have already talked about it in previous videos. If the client expresses an objection, try to isolate it using conditional acceptance. It is a sine qua non condition that as soon as we see the objection, we know that we can overcome it. Then apply conditional acceptance as follows. Example, if that weren't for that problem, would you be willing to? Or if what you are telling me we could resolve to your satisfaction, then Would you be willing to accept? If the client says yes, you will only have to overcome the objection and lead the client to the final closing. 4. Closing by summary. The strategy of this technique consists of ensuring that at the end of the interview, the client sees the summary, the trailer of the interview, marching on the key aspects of it. For this, there are 3 steps. First, summarize the needs. Second, summarize the benefits. Third, obtain the commitment. 5. Time planning close. Here the strategy will consist of introducing time factor as the determinant of when the client will want to have our product or service. For this is necessary to show the client when the decision should be taken by him, to be able to start using our product or service on the day that the client considers should be the most suitable. Showing them that there are dates, times that no longer depends on us as sales professionals, and that time is running out if you want to have the product service on a convenient date. 6. Close of taking it for fact, for granted. The best technique, the one used by good professionals. It goes as follows. The sales interview process has been so clear for the seller, in addition to the face of the client and all that non-verbal communication, reveals that the seller's firmness and with the best smile takes it for granted. It assumes that the agreement has been reached and leads the client to the details of the closing. If the customer has any doubts, the firmness of the seller dissipates them. 7. Closing of little importance. The strategy in this case consists of distracting the customer from the most important point, to buy or not to buy, directing their attention to the less important aspects of the offer, such as size, accessories, delivery condition, dates, etc. etc. 8. Closing by modification. Often a small modification to the product or service offered is enough to the customer to buy. 9. A special opportunity close. Special opportunities can be sales special offers, old prices, units, etc. It is always important to inform the client if there is a special opportunity. 10. Close by joint visit. To keep from losing the sale, to achieve higher goals, and indeed to close the deal when you have exhausted all your other resources, you may want to enlist the help of another salesperson, your manager, or another qualified person. This method is known as the joint visit close technique, because 4 eyes see more than 2. In this case, you must fully inform the history and the current situation with the client to the help person, defining what will be the role of each of one in the interview and who will do what. 11. Closing by pet. What happens when being interested in a pet for us of our children in a pet store, seeing several they leave us one to take it to have it for a few days without any obligation on our part to return it to the store? What happens is that we keep it forever and buy it. To end this sequence of sales closing techniques, something really important to take into account. Even if we had 100 techniques, it will be useless to try to close a client who does not want to buy, because no closing technique makes a client buy who does not want to buy. If our closing fails, it was not the fault of the technique, but rather remember, the closing of the sale is the logical consequence of a good sales interview process. Therefore, let's look for the failure in the interview process and not in the closing. If the sales process is good, really professional, there will be almost no closing, since the client will be the first interested in buying, since she will see in his mind the balance of the sale and how convenient it is to buy. In near future, we will alternate topics of interest to us professionals and always concerning the human factor and its importance in the business world, as well as in the development of the topics that are always of interest both on a personal and professional level. Until a new occasion, regards.